the recording and also the live stream. So we're not going to wait. We're not going to wait for people to come. We're going to just start immediately, so that we're not after the crowd on Zoom. Our aim is to have a discussion, which will also stream live. So those that are not here can join on Facebook and can stream. But for those that are here, you can ask your questions, type your questions on the chat box, so that they can pick it up and ask the guest speaker. So today we are discussing a very important topic, and as usual on Ask the Accountant, we try to make it interactive. It's been a while we had this event.
Am I the only one hearing you?
Is it okay now? Is it better now?
I can hear some music on the background. Am I the only one hearing you?
Sorry. Is it better now?
Perfect.
Is it okay now?
Perfect, sir. Perfect. No.
Okay, sorry. So welcome. Today we're discussing Data Protection Act, and I saw something on Vanguard recently that was published like 21st of June on Vanguard. It's saying Nigeria may generate over 16 billion naira in data business, and I'm kind of curious, the landscape of business and economy is changing in Nigeria and all over the globe. People are beginning to go into career paths that were not taught in the university. And we that are professionals, somehow, today I saw a video clip on TikTok that Israel is now producing food. They now print food with a printer. So you find that jobs that we are taught in university or that we are trained to do are going away. So how do we leverage on new information, new skills, and new opportunities that are all over the place today? So today we have our guest, a friend and a colleague, Mr. Martins, who will be discussing data protection. We hope to have a lawyer next week or 2 weeks' time, ready to conclude, who will discuss in detail the provisions of the Act. But today we are looking at what are the career opportunities that are available, around data protection. The President Bola Tinubu signed the data protection bill into law. The law has obviously excited data and technology experts who feel Nigerian economy is about to witness investment boom like other countries who have passed a similar law. So it means that passing this law or passing this bill into law has opened an opportunity for investors to come into Nigeria. Why and how? Why and how? Since the new law came into effect, it has gained positive predictions, and they've estimated about 6.5 billion naira to be raised in that industry. So if it is correct, it means that we have an opportunity before us as professionals to leverage on. So I'm going to allow Martins to start, but in between his presentation, I'm going to find a way to interject, ask some questions, and if there are questions on the chat box that you've asked, we're also going to allow us to look at those questions so that we don't just run what do you call it, like a Usain Bolt, but try to take your questions into considerations. So I'll allow Mr. Martins, who is an IT auditor, professional IT auditor, CISA expert, to come on board and take us through this topic. Mr. Martins, over to you, please.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. And good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's class. I will on my video if it's allowed. Let me know if you can see my screen. What can you see?
You can see your screen. You can see your screen. Go ahead, please.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
All right. So it's my pleasure to join us here. And like Uma said, the data protection business has become a serious business. And you might be interested in knowing that a lot of organizations, in fact, I work for the banking sector. I work with the bank. And right now, the notion in banking sector is that banking is no longer a financial institution, but an institution using data to provide financial services. So that is why you discover that a lot of people, a lot of banks now close down branches. A lot of banks close down branches. I worked for a finance a bank some years back that had 500 branches, and in fact, it's priding itself in that. And before I left, they were growing and growing and growing, nearly 550. But time came, the events took over. Smaller banks, smaller boys, like I would say now, came up with financial intelligence and put up something together in their houses, and then they are able to provide financial services. So bank is no longer just a financial institution, or it's not just a financial institution, but an institution leveraging on that to provide financial services. That is why a bank, for those of us who are here who work in the bank, you can see a bank who have savings account products for nearly 20 kinds of products in savings. Meanwhile, all of this is put together savings in their balance sheet. So why are they divesting? They will check out a series of a group of people and discover that this demography of people, this is what they like to do. This is what they do mostly on social media. So let us target them. They create a product. The market team are usually mining data to know what people need in the market. So data business or data privacy or data protection business is now a new lease or a new line of business. If you must have heard the phrase that says data is the new oil. A lot of industries now. Okay, let me even put this up. How many of us have paid account on Facebook and Twitter? Paid account on Facebook, Twitter. We are up to 15 here. You can just type how many of us pay for Google Mail or Google product and services? Okay, so I want to assume that a number of us don't pay for these things, but I can assure you, in a way, one way or the other, that you pay. Okay, Chris Madu says it pays. For which one? Facebook or Twitter or Gmail? Just drop a chat. Okay, it's in the very low good, in the very low percentage. But I can assure you that in one way or the other, for these things. How? By the virtue of providing your name alone and your surname, your phone number, you have provided them a very vital information that is very expensive. And today we'll be going through that, protecting those information that you provided for them. How do you, what decision did you take before opening a Gmail account? Did you just open your mobile phone and open Gmail account? In fact, before now, I had up to 6 Gmail accounts because I was looking for free Google Drives where I can store my images, some of my documents that I no longer have need of immediately, but I may have use of it later on. So you begin just to provide this information freely with hope that it is free now. After all, you can have multiple accounts. But then I can assure you that it is not just free. You are paying for it by that singular information that I provide. All right. So assuming you can see my screen now, tell me what you can see on the screen.
I see your screen.
Okay. The Nigerian Data Protection Act, right?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll be running as fast as I can because I learned we have more of questions. So this Data Protection Act, like we all know, was passed into law a few days ago or a few weeks ago. This law, mind you, is not new. It's not necessarily new. So to discuss that, we'll be looking at some key points. What are we expecting in this meeting? Number one, we'll be taking an overview of the law as passed. We'll be taking a reason why the law came up, why is it necessary. Thirdly, we'll be looking at key highlights of the law. Mr. Specific asked that we point out some highlights. What is special about this law? What are the key points? What are we looking at for? So application of the act, where right of subject, we'll get to know who or what is data subject, roles and responsibility of businesses. For that small business that you think you do you have a role in protecting, in collecting and preserving data? We will know today. Key roles and career opportunities in data protection, and top ranking data privacy certifications. So right on, let us jump in. Overview of the law. Now, how many of us had or is aware of the NDPR, the Nigerian do for me? This Nigerian data NDPR, the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation, came into being in around 2018, 2019, when the former president signed it into law. And this was actually managed by NITDA, the Nigerian Information Technology Development Agency, which is a very good agency. So they came up with the regulation in 2018. And regulation took effect in 2019. Why they were managing it at that small level? This new protection law or bill that was signed into law in June has overtaken everything that agency has to do with data protection and regulation as far as Nigeria is concerned. So in June, the law was signed. And number two, the implication of that law signing in about 2 weeks ago means that it takes effect immediately. But then mind you that this law did not take effect. People have companies, individuals, private companies and government agencies have already started complying with this long before now. So they simply made the regulation a law. That is just different. So if you are very familiar with NDPR, just take that mindset, everything you know about NDPR, and put it inside.
So concerns us at this time.
So number two, the Data Protection Act takes effect immediately. We are looking at the overview now. Number three, it provides a legal shield. So legal shield in the sense that this legal shield to protect personal data of Nigerians. So this is basically aimed at protecting Nigerians anywhere you are. This act protects you online and offline. Ask me what they mean by at least online. Most of us are familiar with what online will be. But for offline, do you normally go to the bank and after making deposit, you notebook, you write your name, telling your email address, and then sign? How many of us have observed that these trends are beginning to reduce? They are beginning to reduce because the regulation has a regulation to check those data collection has come into effect since 2019. So I will be interchanging the regulation with the act because they both speak the same thing, even though the act supersedes the regulation. It now covers for the regulation. Number 4. So the act also sets up the commission. Now there is a commission, a statutory commission headed by a commissioner who is a tenured staff of the organization. So this person is the chief data officer of Nigeria. This person or he or she manages the entire ecosystem of data protection. Is it in compliance? Is it in processing? Is it in collection? Is it in annual returns and all that? So this commission now sets up that task. Is now up to that task to manage this. Okay, so number 5 again, this act takes up the administration of the NDPRO. So the NDPRO is now automatically overtaken by the new act signed into law. Okay, so number 6, which is the next one here, the regulation data privacy matters. So if this NDPR had come into law into effect in 2019, so the regulation was aimed at regulating practices of personal data privacy when it comes to personal data collection, processing, storage. So the way you collect, the way you process, the way you store, the way you store, the way you process, the way you use it, and the way you collect them. This regulation aims at managing the whole of that process. Okay, so, and again, number 7 again, the act draws its life from the Constitution. I'm not a lawyer, so if you are interested, you can read the section 37. It was explicit, and that is why the new policy of CBN that came in on Saturday, we are still studying that. How far will they go in what they have just mentioned? Because sometimes it's easier said than done. But you know, in Nigeria, we can be very draconian and drastic about churning out regulations without even checking the impact, calculating the impact of these regulations. They look like more of a bedroom decisions. They just come up and bring out regulation. You must have heard about the regulation that says people will begin to submit their personal social media accounts as part of KYC in the bank. So in Nigeria, data protection is a constitutional right, like I said here. And in section 37, which it will be clearly stated here, I wrote it down somewhere here. It says here, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. This section reads, it says the privacy of citizens, their homes, correspondences, telephone conversation, and telegraphic communication is hereby guaranteed. So this law is not in, this act rather, not in silo. It takes its life from the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So let it not be like we are having a different regulation conflicting the Constitution of the country. So number 8, the Act defines obligations and rights of data subject and data. Who is a data subject? A data subject is you and I. Anywhere you provide your data, you are a data subject. For instance, we consented when Ms. Auma said, for your information, this meeting will be recorded. As you are here, please be aware that you are being recorded. Your continued stay, for those of us who are familiar with the regulation, you discover that your continued stay on a website constitutes a giving of consent. That you visited my website and I don't have cookies notice, for instance, and you think you can sue me to court and say, look, you didn't notify me that my cookies are, you collect cookies for my visiting your website. No, the Act, if you read along the line, the Act specifies that this continuous stay on a particular website or any social media account constitutes consent. So this Act defines the obligation of both the collector of the data and you, the data subject. Very rich Act. So the Act is now the focal point for data protection matters. Everything that has to do with data protection now in Nigeria has been harmonized into one. The Cybersecurity Act, the Health Information Act, the Freedom of Information Act, all of these can still be seen as being talked about as regards the Nigerian Data Protection Act 2023. So why the law is necessary? I wrote here, so data has become a phenomenon. And you know, most of the times when we don't have a sense of privacy, that is why when you want to discuss something with someone one-on-one, you are tempted to say, please, I want to tell you something I don't want somebody to hear. You mind your privacy. You are very interested in protecting what you discuss. And like I wrote here, so without data protection law, it will simply mean a world without fences and walls. All our private conversation, all our personal conversation will be up for grab. So no privacy at all. So whenever you are speaking on phone, why are you confident that nobody is tapping your phone? And that is why when somebody calls me and says that, or when somebody writes on social media and says that, be careful now, DSS is tapping is listening to what you are saying. Well, I have every reason to be cautious what I say, what I do, but I doubt it will be very, very illegal in a very serious, grave offense if you discover that you have been tapped. Section 37 makes it plump and plain. You say your privacy is hereby guaranteed. No long to story. And that is one of the shortest parts of the Constitution. You say your privacy to telephone call, to this, to your house, everything is hereby guaranteed. So this law is necessary to preserve that's the sanctity of our lives, of our discussion, of our conversation. For instance, now anybody who is not part of this Zoom call will not hear what we are saying, except, for instance, this meeting is now shared with those who are not here. Of course, with our consent. All right. So our personal data from our date of birth, our medical record, from our purchasing habits, to our deepest fear, everything is personal to us, and this constitutes personal information. All right. So why the law is necessary? I noted here, number one, the law is necessary to preserve privacy. See, we can't stop emphasizing on privacy. The law is very necessary to preserve privacy. So data protection law aims to safeguard individuals' privacy by ensuring, first of all, ensuring that your personal data is collected, processed, and stored in a responsible manner. I go to our hospitals. I'm sorry to say that the way that our hospitals administer a patient nowadays is just a time bomb for anybody who is hungry to make money. The way our hospitals manage data is such a way. So this law is very important in the sense that it protects, it ensures that our data is collected and managed in a very responsible manner. So number two here, we said the law is necessary to have control over personal information. I can decide who I want to give. Mind you that this law or this act enables you, empowers you to write to your bank or write to the hospital and say, please, what data do you have about me? They will tell you, say, I want to retrieve all my data. I don't want my data with you anymore. I want you to delete my data and assure me that you have done so. This act guarantees you that. If, for instance, you discover that you are no longer doing business with First Bank or with Facebook, for instance, you have every reason to write to Facebook and say, I want you to delete every data you have, of course, delete every data you have about me. But I want to pass a caution here that this is to the extent that the other laws equally permit. For instance, banks are allowed to keep personal record of data or some level of data up to 10 to 50 years. But then there are some statutory ones that you can require that they delete. They will statutorily delete it from their system. So that is, it gives you control over your personal information. You can decide where your personal information will lie. You can decide where it will not. So number 3 here, we said this law ensures the prevention of data breaches and identity theft. 3 days ago, I'll be sharing live experiences. 3 weeks ago, rather, I was unable to access my HMO. I said, what happened? And me, I am somebody that loves to use my HMO to the fullest. I can go there and say, look, I want to do my dental care. I want to see my eyes. You see, I just need a glass. I just need this. I just need that. But suddenly, one of my child now fell sick. I am not able to access my personal account of my HMO. I didn't know anything was wrong. I told the boy, well, I'm not able to access here. It wasn't serious, but I just thought I don't like self-medicating. 2 days after, the same thing. 3 days after, only for me to see in the news from a foreign website that this company has been breached. The data of customers has been hijacked. The website has been taken over. In Nigeria, I'm not telling you what happened 20 years ago. I'm telling you what happened last month of May, early May. So this law guarantees the prevention of data breaches and identity theft. If we want to go deep into this law, you discover that this law ensures that where there has been a data breach, the company or the owner, the managers of that process are expected to inform you and inform this commission that has just been found. So they are expected to inform them within certain days, and they are expected to inform you so that you'll be aware. And not informing you equally presents a breach of the act. So, like I said, this law ensures the prevention of data breach. Number 4, it promotes trust and confidence. People can now comfortably submit their data to their banks, submit their data to the hospital comfortably. You can go to Uber and book a ride without bothering who can infiltrate that system and see your data. People are now comfortable to provide their personal credit card on Uber, for instance, or on Bolt. Why are you not afraid? Because the act or the law is in place. So this law protects, it promotes trust. You just trust. I used to ask somebody, how many times have you stopped a cab and asked him for his driver's license? You just stop a cab and you hop in because you believe that the road safety, the VIO, and all that are doing their job, right? If not, and then most of the time when we enter, we now pray and ask God to protect us against an accident. But then you don't dare to ask the man, can I see your driver license? Do you know? But most of them, fortunately, do not have a driver license. There was a former senator, a former minister in this Federal Republic that died in an accident. And part of the report from road safety says that the driver did not have a valid driver's license. So you can imagine how callous that would be. So protecting of promotion of trust in this case now looks like you trusting a driver and boarding the vehicle without being afraid of whether he would drive and then go and throw you away or have an accident. You are sure this person is a professional and he can drive. Okay, so number 5, this act or this law encourages responsible data practices. It encourages responsible data practices in the sense that there are established guidelines and principles now. Organizations must adhere to these principles when collecting data. For instance, data minimization. Data minimization means that collect only what you need. You can now discover that people don't ask for too much information. Like the analogy I gave earlier, the banks don't give. So most banks I know, they don't give you that paper again to fill. Even when they give you to fill, you feel very light information. Name, teller. They are still afraid, even though some banks are still stubborn in still carrying out full details of customers. Those things are collecting too much data than you needed. Or another aspect of it again is, for instance, going to the field to carry out a survey. I have an NGO, a sister who works for an NGO. She showed me a data collection process that they had. They were collecting all manner. What is the name of your, what is your house? Where do you live? What is the color of your house? Where do you live? Which area do you live? Who is your maid? What's your median name? What's your parents' name? I said, what exactly do you need this data for? You are carrying a test for how malaria affects people in Nigeria. Of course, sometimes they may be needed, but then there is no principle guiding how this data is being collected from what I saw. So one of the necessities of this act is that there will be responsible data processing. Nobody just collects your data anyhow and processes it. The law is there to protect you. So it facilitates international data transfer. You may be aware that Nigeria has an international data transfer agreement with nearly over 440 countries of the world, where Data Protection Act has been domesticated. So those countries where we don't have data domestication, we don't have data transfer with them. So you cannot, for instance, find your data. Which country is the very worst country now? Maybe Venezuela. I am not sure of what countries, other countries are not having good act, but I am sure of that Venezuela. Everybody should not want to do business with Venezuela. So this act facilitates international data transfer. Between Nigeria and UK, there is a seamless transfer of data. We can store our data there. They can store their data here because they know we have a regulation or an act that will preserve this data when they come in. So, and finally, number 7 here, compliance and legal consequences. There are legal and very serious consequences of not adhering to this act. It might interest you to know that where a company has been found in breach of this act, this company will be fined up to 10 million naira or 10%, I think 10% of their gross revenue of previous year. Where you process data above 10,000 personal records, you are fined 10% of your previous year annual revenue. I didn't say profit, revenue. 10% of your annual revenue and some penalties like that. So the act is very serious act, and it spells a lot for companies to sit up and do their business legitimately. So very importantly, some key highlights of the law. We have 4 important areas of this law that is worth noting. Number 1, it safeguards the right of natural person. Natural person is you and I. It's not about the right of dogs, goats, or other forms of animals. No, it safeguards the right of natural persons to privacy. So it helps to implement the section 37 of the Constitution that says your personal right, privacy right is guaranteed. So this right safeguards that right. This act safeguards that right to you as a natural person. Number 2, it fosters safe conduct of transaction involving the exchange of personal data. Like we said before, trust. You trust a company, you give it your data. I trusted that Umar will keep up to data privacy. I registered for this event and I am here. So this act fosters safe conduct of transaction involving exchange of personal data. Another aspect of this is, why do you go online and fill in your personal data and fill in your credit card to buy something? You go to Jumia, you submit your personal data, your credit card. You go to Konga, you go to Alibaba, AliExpress, you submit your credit card. This is simply because you know that there will be protection in that transaction. So this act helps to foster the conduct of transaction involving the exchange of personal data, which is something like critical like credit card. Also, number 3, it prevents manipulation of data. So when we say it prevents manipulation of data, in the sense that companies that you provide your data for will not use it for something else. That is one thing again about this act. If I provide my data for you to give me credit service, you don't have any right to send me SMSs or SMS rather for opening of account for my child. But I will tell you how banks, because sorry, I'll have to use example of banks anyway. Okay, let me use the example of NGO. For instance, I give you my data for tests. You want to test me as a health NGO, you are carrying out a free test. I give you my record to carry out a test of HIV. You do not have any right to go ahead to process my personal data, that same information that I give you, for testing of tuberculosis. I think that's a perfect example, because they found a way to escape that. I can assure you, and I can prove that to anybody who wants to say it is not. That is why you see MTN send you message today, buy ringtone, buy caller tune. MTN send you message, buy a bundle of SMS. Meanwhile, you don't, sometimes when you don't even subscribe, they will send a code to you, you click, and then you are suddenly subscribed to it. So this act helps to prevent manipulation of data. So when I submit my data for something, you don't use it for something else. And finally, this act ensures that Nigerian businesses remain competitive in international trade through the safeguards afforded by a sound data protection regulation. So, like I said earlier, we are now able to compete among countries, do businesses with countries like the UK, US, and Canada, China, because we have a strong data protection act. So where this act is applicable, we are looking at the next thing, application of the act. So 3 very cardinal points you must not miss about this act. 3 very cardinal points you must not miss about this act. Number 1, this act applies to all transactions intended for processing of personal data. Any transaction that has to do with personal data. Any transaction at all that has to do with personal data. I want to do POS. You give me your box, and I give you my card. There is a transaction, and there is an exchange of personal data. So this act covers you. This act covers you. Sometimes when we do transaction, we leave our information. We leave our slip with them. These things are deposits of personal information. Of course, sometimes they are masked, but in any case, they are still personal information. So this act preserves that, covers that kind of transaction. So all transaction intended for processing of personal data, notwithstanding the means by which the data processing is being conducted or intended to be conducted in respect of natural persons in Nigeria. Like I said, this is strictly for natural persons. This is right. This is not animal rights. This data subject rights. So number 2, we said this regulation applies to the collection, storage, processing, use of personal data relating to persons residing in Nigeria and persons of Nigerian nationality by automated or non-automated means. What it means is that anybody who is a Nigerian citizen in the UK can rely on this data for protection. Anybody who is in Nigeria doing business with a foreign country can rely, for instance, you're doing business with Facebook. Facebook is expected to comply with the Nigerian Data Protection Act. You are doing a business with InterSwitch. You are doing a business with which other country, which other company, maybe like Bolt. This act covers them, protects you as a natural person residing in Nigeria. So this is an act for preservation of, that regulates how data is being collected, stored, processed, and used. So that you don't go to Facebook and see your face on Facebook on maybe UBA has now your face, and then suddenly you are now the brand ambassador. No, it doesn't work like that. So even if they have your picture earlier, the only contract you have with them is to be your banker. So anything outside that becomes a violation. So like I said, the regulation helps to preserve that. You might be aware that one comedian sued a commercial bank for using his image in their adverts. I didn't know how that eventually ended, but I must tell you that that person made a very huge money. Not small. He's a comedian. He's a skit maker. I won't call his name. Okay, number 3 and lastly, this is just 3 that I listed. It applies to natural persons. Okay, we said this already, residing inside or outside Nigeria, or outside Nigeria, who is a citizen of Nigeria. I mentioned that earlier. So you are either number 2, you are a Nigerian living here, or you are a Nigerian living outside. I already said that. So this act protects or preserves your rights. We have rights. What are your rights? Explicitly, what are your rights as a data subject, as a natural person? Number 1, we have to run fast. You have right to be informed about your data being collected. Example is what we had here this evening. Mr. Omar just said, if you are interested, please be aware that we are recording your data and all that. And when we stayed back. Number 2, right of consent. In as much as you have right to be informed, you have been informed, you equally have the right to consent. Consent now, like I mentioned earlier, your continued stay here is consent. Said that, but our continued stay here is already consent. Now, again, you have right of access. I can write to Mana and say, please, I want to have access to them. What do you have? I will not be surprised. I was surprised if Umar decided that he has a registration page. I'm now seeing my marriage anniversary date. That will not be proper. So I have right to access what you have about me. Number 4, right to object to further processing. Like I mentioned earlier, you can write to any company, MTN now, and say, please, what is the data you have about me? They will tell you, please stop processing my data. I am no longer interested. This act guarantees you that. Now, right of rectification. You have my name. My name is Chigozie Martins Mbago. You have my name as Chigozie M. Mbago. I have a right to write to you free of charge and tell you, please correct my name as you have it on your system. My name is not Chigozie M. Mbago. My name is Chigozie Martins Mbago. So I have a right of rectification. That is one of my rights as stated in the Act. Number 6, right to restrict processing. I already said that. Please stop processing my data. I don't want you to go further with it. Number 7, right to personal portability. I can write to malaria consortium, for instance, and say, they will please put data like you have it to Society for Family Health. As have it to First Bank free of charge. That there it does not have a reasonable cost. And then finally, number 8, last but not the least, is say right to be forgotten. I told us earlier, I can write to a bank and say, please forget me. Don't remember me anymore. Delete everything you have about me. Never you remember me again. Right to be forgotten. You have that right. Faster, have rules of businesses. Rules of businesses. Businesses by this act are now embedded, are now having a very enormous task to carry. Like I noted here. So to maintain the above right of the citizens of whom they have collected their data, number 1, the organization must engage a DPCO. DPCO is Data Protection Compliance Organization. And when we come to career in this field, one of the areas that we, the accountants, can leverage very, very easily. DPCO. It is very easy. And now with this act or with this new law, it is now more easier to even become a DPCO. And people that are cashing out on this are mainly the lawyers and the chartered accountants. You rarely see a chartered accountant now in Abuja, an accounting firm in Abuja now that does not have 1 or 2 things to do with data protection. So DPCO is list organizations that carry out audits, compliance audits for the commission. So this now does not audit you by themselves. Just like companies are expected to submit annual financial reports to regulatory bodies, you are now expected to submit a DPCO report to the CBN, to NIDA, as it then was, but now to the new commission, the Nigerian Data Protection Commission. Every March of the year, you must submit your compliance reports. So who are the DPCOs? Right now, as the last time I checked, we had 110 DPCOs until they opened it last year, when people now flooded. I for one, I don't registration, but then it's a very open and lucrative field. So number one thing, the responsibility of the businesses is that they must engage in data protection compliance organization to carry out audits of their processes, of their business, and of what they do. Number two, the Act puts a responsibility that all businesses must designate a data protection officer, DPO. If you check every company's website, I know of banks, if you check every website, you must see for this, when it has to do with data privacy, contact our DPO. It's a must, it's a regulatory issue. So that is one of the roles they must play. They must ensure that they designate a role of data protection officer. Now, this is another career opportunity. For instance, companies are not necessarily mandated to employ outside a fresh person to carry out this. What most companies do is that person in charge of their cybersecurity is usually given this task or this role to manage. But then, with this commission coming on board, or with this act coming on board, a lot more will change in the next few months. People will take data management more seriously. And finally, you must document and publish a data protection policy. Every company now is mandated to produce a data protection policy. So when you visit my website, the first thing you see is privacy policy, cookies notice. Why that? It is a regulation that says that you must publish your data protection policy. And if you check across board, all the institutions, financial, non-financial, government, non-governmental, you discover that they are almost reading the same thing, the same format. They are complying to the NDPR, the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation. So that is one of the things, those are the three things that the companies must come up with immediately. Now, what are in this data protection that we have talked about, this new, we call the data governance experts. Whereby this person is expected to manage the entire data management process up to the board level. So it's very high profile, up to an executive level even. That is the person who manages the governance aspect of data. But aside from that, we have the DPO that I've talked about, data protection officer. So this data protection officer is a leadership role as well, because he manages the entire everything that has to do with data protection, data privacy for every company. So for your company, if you don't have a data protection officer, tell them to appoint you as one, that you are interested in becoming a data protection officer. So a leadership role, and the act is required by the act. It's a must. And data privacy officer, this person manages and monitors data privacy laws. This act that has just been passed by the president, this data privacy officer monitors compliance. For instance, our websites, our data privacy policy is expired or is no longer there. This person just sits down, monitors the data privacy policy on the website, and CCTV. For instance, every organization is now mandated to put a privacy notice as regards this CCTV capture. That's why when you go to organization, it will read boldly, your activities here is monitored by our CCTV camera, our CCTV. That is mandatory. So this data privacy officer, these are part of his function. And again, another example is when you go to the bank, you write your name. Look carefully. Look carefully. It might be conspicuous. It might not be conspicuous, rather. Look carefully. You see a notice board. They will write it there. Every information you provide here is with consent. It's common with banks. My bank particularly is common. It's there in all the branches. You are provided this information. You are agreeing to our privacy policy. If you want to know about our privacy policy, go to our website. So they will just refer you. So where is the privacy policy written? It's all there on the website. You want to open an app, a mobile account, an account on our mobile app. The next thing they will ask you is privacy policy. You are consenting to our privacy policy. For more information, visit our website. You are directed to the website to go read. So this data privacy officer, that is one of the job. It's a very low, mid-level role. And this role requires just compliance knowledge, audit knowledge, and all that. So once you have this knowledge, you can provide this service to your organization. Now, how do I mean? It's not a rocket science, that's what I mean. Compliance, read the law. What does the law say? The law says that we must collect data, we must minimize the data we collect. When they want to create products, they must go to data privacy office to collect clearance. When they want to go for marketing campaign, they must get clearance. When they want to create a website, they must get clearance. When they want to do engagement with external people, this role is very important now, and that is why this role sometimes sits or reports to the board, to senior management, and sometimes to the board, depending on the size of the organization. So we have data privacy officer, data governance roles, and so those compliance, very lucrative role. All you just need is to keep the law. We have privacy engineer, which is where I belong to. So the privacy engineering, for instance, is to ensure that data privacy in a company. For instance, encryption over data. As I'm talking to you now, it is required by law, by this law, that you encrypt your data at rest and your data in transit. So wherever your data is moving to, it is your duty to ensure that those things are encrypted, and they are continuously encrypted. Number one. Number two, again, the role that I play, for instance, I equally carry out the data privacy compliance audit. That's part of my role as an auditor. I carry out the role of data privacy compliance, and then and this privacy compliance, you bring the act in an Excel template. The act says that you must have privacy policy in your website. Do you have it? Tick. So the onus is more on us to know what the act is. Simple. Know what the act is, memorize it, capture it, and know what it says. That becomes a role for you. So for those of us who are in compliance at the moment, you are in this role. So information system auditor, that is equally my own part. Then we have the major people who now go to court, the privacy lawyer and attorney. The privacy lawyers, they are there. They are those who can go to court and enforce your right when it is breached. That architect is the one now the people in vogue. They are now the people in vogue. As I'm talking to you, that is what we call data tokenization, data monetization. How do you collect all this data that you have now? How do you make a sense out of it? How do you make a sense out of the data you have collected? Sometimes you collect data in an unstructured manner, name, date of birth, residence address, all that. These architects are those that will bring them together and build something and make up something for you that will be more useful and meaningful in the future. Security auditor, that is where IT auditor equally falls into, and then DPCO. Majority of us here are accountants. We must be very much aware of this by now. DPCO, the process of getting registered as a DPCO, something we might need to discuss another time. But then it is very easy. Number one, you must have a website that is .ng. Excuse me. Number two, that these are the very general requirements. Website that is .ng, tax clearance, tax identification number, business registration. Those are the four major. Every other thing becomes, do you have a qualification to do what you want to do as a chartered accountant or as a fellow of the institute? You are good as an external auditor. So you are good as a DPCO. The only thing you may need to do is to get someone to join your team who is into cybersecurity or IT auditing, as the case may be. And then we have top ranking certifications. Out of all this, I have the Certified Data Privacy Solution Engineer administered by ISACA. But then we have the major certifications in data privacy regulation. We have the Certified Information Privacy Professional. This one is related to Europe. CIPPE. We have the Certified Information Privacy Manager. CIPM. We have Certified Information Privacy Technologies. And then the last one, which is where I belong, we have Certified Privacy Solution Engineer. And then that is where we anchor. I hope I've not run very fast, but I am ready for question. I'm actually running for time so that we can have in the interactive session more. I am grateful for this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Good. Please, a round of applause for Martins. I know we won't see your hands or hear your hands, but just check him up. This information is loaded, as in well loaded. Yeah, I can see the clap. Please, the emojis should be coming. If you ask me, I think, in my opinion, this is not a 1 hour session. You know, it's not an item for 1 hour. And as you can see, we've already exhausted our 1 hour. And
Exactly.
we may need to, we have a lawyer coming up next for the details of the act. But if you ask me, basically, I would like to have a part 2 with Martins, you know, to pick out some major, because to be honest, the DPCO, as in, this is my first one joining it, to be honest. In fact, this is my first one joining it. I don't
Wow.
think yes, to be honest. So I'm going to share a poll. I want to launch a poll. Just answer yes or no on the poll. Let's see the level of information we have from tonight. You know, the DPCO, I've not even heard of it before. My mind is just the old school auditor, doing my audit and tax, and, you know, doing my accounting, which you can start with overload. You know, when I hear data, my mind of data is based on people like Martin who are into IT audits. You know, for we that are into statutory audits and tax, I don't have anything to do with data, but this is insightful. So we'll take questions, comments. The poll is out there. Please just answer yes or no. Someone is asking, how do we handle the law enforcement officers when they demand for clients' data or information? Then 2, are you saying that we can tell the banks to delete our banking history with them once we are done with them? I thought they are bound by law to keep it for a minimum of 10 years. So I think Martins answered the second one. We won't waste our time there. He said that the other acts or laws in the banking sector also should be looked side by side with the Data Protection Act, where banks are mandated to keep information from a period of 10 to 50 years. You know, so I think Martin has already answered that one already. So Martin, the first question is there for you to just throw light into. If you have more questions, we can just give 5 minutes and round up this session, and, you know, plan to convert next week Sunday again to take another session with either Martins or the lawyer. Over to you, Martins.
Can again?
There's a question on the chat. Just look at it. Question 1: how do we handle law enforcement officers when they demand for client information?
Okay. Exactly. Thank you for that question. One of the provisions of this act is that you are mandated, in as much as it is law enforcement, it come with legal backing. So data is required for by law. You are expected to provide it. You cannot even afford to stay one moment without. In fact, your company will find you out. And that is why most of those things are handled correctly. Like, I mean, those of us in internal audit, please, the police are on us, so they want to come and lock our office. So what do we answer them? Compliance will say, okay, hello, don't worry, the legal will reply. But then you must provide the enforcement. Okay, let me get that from the act, but why the question keeps coming, I will get that from the act. It's very explicit. You must provide it. Those are the basis where you must give out personal information. And like Umar responded on the other one, the law expects you, gives you a right to request for your data to be deleted, but to the extent that the other law too governing a particular business asks them to maintain that data, that is what they will obey. For instance, CBN regulation mandates banks to keep data for a certain number of time, for a certain number of years. I don't know exactly, but I know some are even 50 years. So then that is the most superior law that governs that, because that one is statutory, is a regulatory issue for bank. And so for hospital, I don't know. But then other ones, that is just what is required of them. Well, so sometimes we can even try out this. You can even try the data portability, try your hand on data portability, write to MTN. Is it data portability? Now, no. What do you have about me? I'll write to Access. Give me everything you have about me. Put it in writing and send to me. They'll write it. They will do it. Thank you. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, I hope so too. Okay, we don't have any further questions. Do we have anyone who ask questions by speaking? You can unmute your mic and speak. We have just 2 minutes to round up today. We'll discuss with Martins and see how we can dive into the career path more, especially for those that are accountants that want to, move into career and data protection. Someone like me, so so if we have people that want to go into those areas, we can just pick like 1 or 2 areas and dive into it, covering areas that have to do with certifications, skills to acquire, what it entails to be in that profession. You can just pick 2 areas and dive into it, and see how we can leverage on information from you and go into it. If we don't have questions, closing remarks by anyone, any further question, closing remarks, comments, just raise your hands and
somebody saying the poll is not clickable. I think I observed that too.
That's because he was once a co-host. Now he can click. He's no more a co-host. He can click now.
Okay.
So that was why he was not able to click on the poll. But I think he's not a co-host now. So if you don't have any more questions or comments, when we don't get questions and comments, 2 things are on my mind. One is either everything you said, they are okay, we know everything you've said, or they are just new to us. You are trying to process information, to even understand what this guy was saying. So it's understandable. We are still trying to process, because a lot of things are new to me, honestly. I don't know if I'm alone on this table. So maybe you're not getting more questions because people are still trying to understand what the heck you are saying in the first place. So I believe that we can just do this way. We can have a gray area for now. So we can have I remember when they signed the Transfer Pricing Act 2012, Transfer Pricing Act, it was a gray area. We had this session in chat in Ikeja, where PwC were the convener of that session. A lot of guys from Mobile, Shell, Chevron were there, expatriates, accountants, the guys from PwC were just, bamboozling us with transfer pricing,
with English,
base profit erosion, what do they call that one again? Sir? So many things they are saying that it was just strange. But because I had done research before that session, I was the only one finding question for all cylinders. At a point, the guy came to me and said, "Oh, boy, calm down now," because I was prepared. So I think what we'll do is, if we can get questions, we'll drop our email addresses. If we get questions before Friday, we can have a session with Martins again for just questions and answers. I have like 10 questions that I can ask. We need to round up now because tomorrow is work. We can have
Exactly.
next week Sunday if Martin is available again. No slides. We just come at have a discussion. We ask all our questions. They have 10 already, which I won't show you. 10 questions to ask him from what he's saying. I don't understand what it means. How it will benefit my pocket or my firm. So next Sunday, if Martin is available, we'll ask those questions. So if I'm okay, your hand is up, can I mute and please speak?
Sorry, that was an error. We'll still wait for the next meeting.
You want to see the next meeting?
Perfect.
Okay, Martin, please. You see this thing you just said today that you have bamboozled us with this your strange, strange career path.
But I hope I was not too fast.
No, you are okay. You are,
No,
but the
at all.
point was
Then
that
we'll just need to digest and come back.
Don't worry. You know one thing about data privacy here is one of the low hanging fruit. It's one of the low hanging fruits and open to anybody. I have the certification exam, and just like I tell people, they call it certified data privacy solution engineer. There is nothing mass inside. Everything is literature. Everything is literature. It's something you can sit down, read, and write, and then there.
I think the best thing is to just start writing the exam now because we can never tell when it's leading to.
I'm telling you, yeah, exactly.
Just to find out to write the exam now, if it is literature, we'll go and cram our pass now. Because now
it's literature.
we cannot tell where the wind is going. Okay, so it's 10 minutes past 9 o'clock. Next Sunday, Martins will come back. Martins, you have to come back next Sunday, 8 to 9. No slides. We just ask questions. We just discuss, interact, and trash out this issue. We have to shift the lawyer because we had for the next 2 weeks we have arranged to have an investment expert. It was about the dollar, naira issues we're having now.
Yeah.
We have to shift him further. Let's take the next 2 to 3 weeks and digest this data protection act. So next week, Martins will come. We'll call you again. Please oblige us. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
I'm grateful, sir.
For coming to this meeting today. We are grateful that you came. Thanks for honoring us. When we call you again next Sunday, just have this discussion on Ask the Accountants. Do have a productive week, and remember, don't give up. Keep striving, keep trying, and make sure that your man hour in the office counts. Thank you and good night. Have a nice week, everyone.
Thank you, sir.